Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. So maybe that sounds like a studio or a live recording to you. But this is Airwindows kGuitarHall2. And all of that is fake. Sounds like this. This is one of my new reverbs. Oh, by the way, speaking of fake, this is fake too. But you've already got that because that's just pointy guitar. So, what you might ask is this for? Well, you can kind of hear it. It's for doing stuff like this with. And it works real good. But I can run you through its paces as to the kinds of stuff that it does. Because here it is. I've got three separate reverb sends here. Close verb, midverb, and far verb. And we're looking at midverb at the moment. Here's close. I'm giving that just only the guitar, it appears. Here's far. That's got a bit of a clap and a keyboard. And here, oh, also, far is getting some bass guitar. But here's mid. And this is the one I'm going to show you how this works. So if we go over to this, here's everything that it does. For instance, regen means you can make it extend a lot farther or get much shorter. Derez is the way that I make derezes these days, which is center, it's not derez at all. To the left, it's derez in such a way that it's making the room seem larger, but it's also filtering. It's not letting high frequencies come through. And then, of course, to the right on derez is kind of special effects. So you can do that with this as well if you'd like. Filter is not one of the fancy Bezier filters, more of a normal, I think it's based on pair, and it does this. What you're hearing in the background there is early reflections, and early reflections are at full brightness. They give kind of the tonal qualities, meaning that it's the first echoes before the actual reverb kicks in. And lastly, and we can leave early reflections on because it's going to change its sound quite distinctly this way. Position is the real thing that's going to give you a lot of useful behavior, because position goes between behaviors like this and behaviors like this. So what might you ask is position? It's like pre-delay, except for it's built out of the actual delay constants built into the reverb. So what I can do is rein it back maybe a little bit, leave derez full on, leave filter full on, although I could fool with that too, like leave early reflections full on, and position is, again, like a pre-delay. We can use dry wet here to give us an example of how it's going to interact. So a position of 0 that is, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps up against the back wall. Let's find out, because position of 1 is clearly much more pre-delay. So here's how this essentially works. You use position to dial in the position in the room that you're generating. This is very like, in fact, it's exactly the same as kGuitarHall. So let's say we want to make this drum stuff and this guitar stuff sit like it's closer to the back of the room. Well, we do that by reducing position. And you get into a zone where it sounds like you're getting bass reinforcement from the back wall, as we can plainly hear. In fact, let me restart this. You can hear, because the drums are kicking in at a useful time, that it sounds like these things are against the back wall of the room. But we can move them out into the room like this. Just like if you were in a real room in a real studio, you want to pick a useful position to get your sound. You don't necessarily move your drums all the way against the back wall unless you mean to. You're going to have a different sound at every position, and there's a lot of positions in there that you can use. Now we're out more into the middle of the room, and we can go all the way forwards until we're right up at the mics that are recording the room. Closer. And now we're even getting almost an echo. Again, if you want to do a full-on pre-delay, especially since this is a smaller sort of room, what you might want to do is go to your verb send and maybe use a separate delay in front of this if it's running all wet. But this is not running all wet. Instead, we're able to bring up the dry signal. And even though the reverb is not as loud, we can filter it a tiny bit maybe. We can pull the early reflections back down to the normal setting. And now it's more obviously a pre-delay thing going on. And then we can sneak the position back. So listen to this. Moving the drums back in the room. Farther back still. Even farther back. Right up against the back wall, and literally against the back wall here. So I can put this back to what I had. And that's how we do it. And again, just hit shift so while these are selected. Here's what this mix sounds like with none of these reverbs. And then here's what the reverbs were doing. Again, we've got a couple of things right up front except for you can't tell as easily when there isn't a dry signal to compare to. And some of those sounds are like right up against the back wall. And it is a full mix through which we can get the end result. And none of it is actually a room or anything like that. It is literally just plug-in trickery, up to and including that guitar is also fake. There you have it. So I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff. Like I said, and I'm going to be making a couple of other videos. I'm under a little more financial pressure right now because I have a car payment. I think I can cover it. I'm looking for more help, so I'm looking to earn more help by doing more work. Now, I'm working full-time and faster than most people anyhow, so there's only so much I can get out of that. But I'll tell you, I'm still having some ideas sort of prompted by this additional pressure. Namely, this morning, before I even got up and started making any videos, I came up with a plugin idea that is a follow-up to cabs. I'm making cabs 2 based on the sort of speaker emulation thing in Pointy Guitar, which is the guitar emulation thing that you heard. I have, however, altered it in a couple of ways, and that's likely going to become the high pass and low pass for both console H, which I will get you by 2026, and also the specifically Airwindows one of console that I'm looking to design for myself. You can't really see it very easily, but behind me, console X there, I'm kind of revising it so that I can make music based on just my guitars and bass and drums and things, and use Pointy Deluxe and also other things of that nature to start dialing in. Basically, I'm going to be using Pointy Deluxe to make guitar and bass sounds, which hopefully will be good fun. And then the new version of console for specifically me, I think it's going to be console AW or whatever, that's going to be essentially taking whatever you want and bringing it into a version of console that has Smooth EQ 2. And I'm also going to be including this thing that I just developed this morning and will be coming out with. I've got a backload of plugins to give you. One of them is this kGuitarHall2. But the new console is going to include the sort of speaker emulation-y high pass and low pass, and they will also be completely defeated if you turn them all the way to the extremes, which is not the case for Pointy Guitar. I think it's still in play wherever you use it. Anyway, I've got a lot of stuff to work on, and I'm real excited about a whole bunch of it. I also am going to start posting more of those classic records, and that's going to be another kind of fundraising thing, in that I badly want to come up with a tier of my Patreon where people who actually have money to spend, apparently not like me anymore, but I'm not cutting off any of the Patreons that I'm supporting, but I can bring in a tier that is going to be more costly without removing any of my plugins or any of my work for people that I want to have that work, by just restricting more of the demo stuff, my classic records, played through meter so you can see what those things do. That can be the fundraiser, because that's not taking anything away from anybody that helps them make music. It's just some of the inspiration that I've always had, and also really good demonstrations of what you can aim for using Airwindows meter to dial in a sound. And if I do it properly, I might even be able to include bands and artists who do not let their stuff show up on YouTube, because this won't be. This will be private only. And as such, that's pretty exciting. I might get to throw some stuff at you that you can see and measure and see why people got so excited about it, looking at meter to see how that stuff comes out. And there are many surprises, but for now, enjoy kGuitarHall2, and I'll talk to you later. Oh, one quickly thing. Yes, bandpass, yes, low and high pass that I'm working on and just came up with this morning. I also hear you when you say you want quicker and smaller reverbs. I do have one left that does need to be posted. That's the notorious K-Alien spaceship, which will be of interest to ambient people and whatever. And that's unreasonably huge. And I've always done lots of unreasonably huge, but I'm working on one that I'm going to be calling K-Station because I'm looking to do some things kind of like I've promised to work on a sort of filtery compressor thing inspired by Dilla and called the Donuts. That's a good direction to follow. I'm no longer interested in attempting to make things act like anybody's hardware past, present, or future, but I'm very interested in doing things like finding out how to do that amazing reverb on David Bowie's vocals on the album Station to Station. And I think that's a digital reverb, and I think I can get something that might not be the same, but gets some of that vibe. And if I can get vibe that works the way that the original studio recordings work, that give you the kinds of things that those hit records brought, I don't have to talk about people's brand names in terms of gear. I can make references to stuff that you might have heard of, that you might want to get the sound of, and go about getting the sound in my own way. So with that, I hope you enjoy kGuitarHall2, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.